Creatine supplemented into a sedentary lifestyle does almost nothing useful. This is not a theoretical claim. It is what the research shows when you compare creatine supplementation without exercise to creatine supplementation with progressive training. The molecule is not anabolic in isolation. It is an amplifier of the training signal, and if there is no training signal to amplify, there is nothing for it to work with. The phosphocreatine system exists to support high-intensity muscular contractions. Without sufficient intensity to demand maximum phosphocreatine utilization, the buffer does not become the limiting factor that creatine can address. At low to moderate exercise intensities, the aerobic energy system is capable of meeting ATP demands without significant reliance on the phosphocreatine buffer. Creatine supplementation does not improve performance at intensities where phosphocreatine is not the rate-limiting energy source. Progressive overload is the principle that training stimulus must increase over time to continue driving adaptation. A muscle that is repeatedly exposed to the same load adapts to that load and then stops adapting. Increasing the load, or the volume, or the density, or the specificity is what provides the continued stimulus for growth and strength development. Without progressive overload, training reaches a plateau regardless of supplementation. Creatine's role in this framework is as a facilitator of progressive overload, not as a substitute for it. By allowing one or two additional quality repetitions at a given load, creatine enables the athlete to handle more training volume before accumulating the fatigue that degrades technique and reduces the quality of the stimulus. That additional volume at adequate intensity is the proximate mechanism of the greater adaptation. Creatine is 2 steps upstream of that adaptation. Athletes who fail to see results from creatine supplementation are often in one of 2 situations. They are training at intensities and with recovery patterns where the energy system effects of creatine are not the limiting factor. Or they are training progressively but not tracking their numbers closely enough to notice the marginal improvements that creatine contributes, improvements that accumulate into significant differences over months. The tracking point is worth dwelling on. Creatine does not dramatically transform a training session. 1 or 2 additional repetitions at a given load, marginally faster recovery between sets, slightly less fatigue accumulation across a session. These are the acute effects. Their significance is in the compounding. If every session is marginally higher quality and marginally better stimulates the adaptations that drive improvement, the cumulative effect over a training year is large. But the individual session difference can be subtle enough that someone who does not track their performance carefully might attribute the progress to training discipline alone. The supplement works best when the training does what it is supposed to do. Progressive overload, adequate protein, consistent sleep, sufficient training frequency. These are the drivers. Creatine is the factor that ensures each session is slightly better than it would be without it, and that the recovery between sessions is slightly more complete. The research designs that have isolated creatine's effect from training intensity are instructive. Several studies have given creatine to subjects who were not training, or who were training minimally, to assess whether creatine alone produces muscle changes. The findings are consistent. Creatine without progressive resistance training produces modest changes in muscle phosphocreatine stores, but does not produce meaningful changes in lean mass, fiber size, or strength. The supplement's effect requires the training stimulus to be present. This has practical implications for the athlete who takes creatine while injured and unable to train. During periods of forced detraining, injury, illness, travel, the phosphocreatine pool maintained by supplementation does not drive muscle growth. However, it may attenuate muscle loss during the detraining period. Research on creatine during immobilization has found reduced atrophy rates compared to placebo in immobilized limbs. The mechanism is different from the training amplification effect. Why? Creatine may support the cellular environment for protein retention, even without training, through its osmotic and signaling effects. But the benefit is atrophy prevention, not growth, and it is smaller in magnitude than the training plus creatine benefit. The supplement supports what training does. Training without progressive overload stalls. Creatine without training does almost nothing. Together, with progressive overload providing the stimulus and creatine ensuring maximum adaptation per session, the combination compounds into results neither produces alone.